Every life has a beginning shaped by unseen forces, small moments, and quiet choices that eventually grow into a story worth telling. Behind every public legacy lies a private journey filled with struggle, triumph, loss, and the search for meaning. In this video, we look beyond the headlines and achievements to explore the human being at the center, their childhood, their dreams, their turning points, and the moments that defined who they became. This is a reflection on a life lived, a path taken, and the lasting imprint one person leaves on the world. Antone "Chubby" Tavares was born into a large Cape Verdean American family, and right from childhood music flowed through their home. His father, a skilled guitarist familiar with Cape Verdean and Portuguese musical traditions, would play while the children sang. It was in those early, simple moments that the seeds of harmony were planted. Growing up in New Bedford, Massachusetts and Providence, Rhode Island, Chubby and his brothers absorbed a rich mix of cultural sound, old world folk from their heritage, doo-wop and soul from the records their older brother played, and the raw rhythm of everyday life shaped by their immigrant roots. They began performing as young teens under the name Chubby and the Turnpikes, building their craft in local clubs, singing, learning, blending their voices, and dreaming of more. That name carried them through the 60s, a period of struggle, perseverance, and deep familial bonds forged through music. Their early recordings gained modest attention, but nothing that foreshadowed the heights to come. In the early 1970s, they rebranded themselves as Tavares, their family name, and signed with a major label. With this turning point, the combination of their tight harmonies, soulful vocals, and a growing confidence began to shine. Their debut as Tavares brought a first taste of success, but what followed was a steady climb. In 1974, they scored their first major R&B chart-topping single with a cover of "She's Gone," a song that became a cornerstone of their identity as a group capable of soul-stirring emotion and smooth delivery. As the 1970s unfolded, Tavares entered a golden era. They released hit after hit, "It Only Takes a Minute," "Heaven Must Be Missing an Angel," "Don't Take Away the Music," "Whodunit," each song weaving their voices into groovy, lush arrangements that resonated in clubs, on radio, and across dance floors. Their sound evolved. It absorbed soul, R&B, disco, and pop, and still retained that heartfelt warmth rooted in brotherhood. Chubby's lead vocals often carried the songs, sometimes tender, sometimes joyous, always soulful, capturing the emotional core of their music. Their performances weren't just about notes and rhythm, they were about feeling, community, and the shared cultural heritage they carried from their Cape Verdean ancestry. Then came the moment that etched them into music history. Their cover of "More Than a Woman," originally by the Bee Gees, was included on the soundtrack of the massively successful film Saturday Night Fever. The soundtrack became a worldwide phenomenon, one of the best-selling albums of its time, and it brought Tavares recognition on a global scale. That success awarded them a Grammy Award, a testament not only to their vocal talent but to their ability to transcend genres, cultures, and expectations. For Chubby and his brothers, this was confirmation that their journey, from humble home harmonies to international stardom, had succeeded. Even as music taste shifted, the group remained committed to their craft. Albums continued, tours continued. As the disco era faded and the 80s brought new challenges, Tavares adapted. Their music incorporated softer ballads, continued soulful performances, and deeper lyrical themes. Chubby's voice matured, carrying more weight and wisdom. His singing became a chronicle of experience, emotion, and the passage of time. In the 2010s, after decades of being a group, Chubby embarked on a solo path. He released solo albums that paid homage to the sound that defined him but also reflected his personal journey, growth, loss, hope, and resilience. One album, titled Amazing Ride, felt especially like a musical memoir. Its songs spoke not only to the joys of love and music, but to the struggles that come with long life, long career, deep identity, and the memories of a changing world. He described the record aptly. His amazing ride through life, music and time, a chance to reach listeners beyond nostalgia, to speak to younger generations, to connect across divide. Through all of this, fame and success, solos and group reunions, changing times and shifting tastes, Chubby stayed grounded. For him, music remained rooted in family, in heritage, and in the belief that soulful harmony can heal, uplift, and unify. His career spanned decades, but it was never about chasing fame. It was about honest expression, about carrying forward the songs his father taught him, the harmonies his brothers practiced with him, and the emotions countless fans felt when his voice rose on stage or through speakers. In the end, Chubby Tavares' life is more than a story of hits and charts. It is a story of family, tradition, faith, and perseverance, of brothers who shared a dream and devoted their lives to making it real, of music born in small rooms and humble beginnings that grew to fill arenas and cross oceans, and of one man whose voice carried the weight of memory and the promise of soul. His legacy lives in every record, every note, every harmony, a legacy that shows how roots and heart can make music timeless. As we remember Chubby, we remember not only the energy of disco nights and R&B grooves, but the quiet moments between, the practice sessions, the laughter, the shared meals, the bonds of blood and song. His journey from a boy in Cape Verdean immigrant family to a voice heard around the world is itself a melody, complex, beautiful, human. And in that melody, Chubby Tavares remains alive, not just in memory, but in every harmony, every rhythm, every soul his voice touched. Frank Urban Fuzzy Zoeller Jr. was born on November 11, 1951, in New Albany, Indiana, into modest circumstances. From an early age, he was drawn to golf, so drawn that by age 3 he was swinging clubs near a neighborhood course. Growing up next to Valley View Country Club, the formative clang of irons and the hush of fairways became part of the fabric of his childhood. As a young man, he pursued collegiate golf, first at a junior college in Florida, then at the University of Houston, a powerhouse in collegiate golf at the time. In 1973, he turned professional, stepping onto a path that would lead him beyond small-town Indiana into the global spotlight. In those early years on tour, Zoeller was not yet among the elite. He struggled. His rookie season yielded a modest $7,318. He made 11 cuts in 22 starts, his best finish a tie for 14th. Yet beneath the unremarkable stats burned a stubborn belief. By his second year, he had improved dramatically, climbing nearly 90 places up the money list, and registering multiple top 10 finishes. In back-to-back weeks 1 July, he stunned observers. At the Quad Cities Open he opened with a 63, birdied the final 8 holes, tying a tour record for consecutive birdies. The next week, he nearly won again. That string of strong performances marked a turning point. Colleagues and commentators began to notice. A quiet determination, an old-school work ethic, and an uncanny comfort under pressure. But if Fuzzy Zoeller was to etch his name into history, it would come with a shock that few saw coming. In 1979, just 6 years after turning pro, on his very first attempt at the sport's most prestigious tournament, the Masters Tournament at Augusta National, Zoeller found himself in a 3-way sudden death playoff with veteran stars, including the legendary Tom Watson and Ed Snead. Over 72 holes they had equaled in performance. And yet, under the immense weight of expectation, or perhaps buoyed by youthful fearlessness, Zoeller delivered. On the second playoff hole, he sank a 6-foot birdie putt to claim the green jacket. The moment he watched that ball drop, he raised his putter high in the air, a jubilant, iconic gesture that thundered through the gallery. "I've never been to heaven," he said later, "and thinking back on my life, I probably won't get a chance to go. I guess winning the Masters is as close as I'm going to get." That victory, a debut victory, made him only the 3rd golfer ever to win the Masters on his first try. In the years that followed, Zoeller's victory at Augusta seemed prophetic, a sign that he belonged to golf's elite. For a time it was true, but the path was not smooth. He captured a total of 10 PGA Tour wins, but many came in fits and starts. He was inconsistent. Talent? Undeniable. But the touring life, with its travel, pressure, expectations, took its toll. Yet Zoeller retained something that set him apart: his personality. Quick-witted, irreverent, unafraid to joke. He played fast and loose, and was known to whistle between shots, a practice he once described as the best way I know to let go of tension. His relaxed demeanor resonated. Fans felt they were watching someone who loved the game not just for titles, but for the sheer joy of walking the fairways. Then came 1984, a defining moment. At the U.S. Open held at the legendary Winged Foot Golf Club, Zoeller entered his 8th appearance in the tournament. After a rock-steady opening round and a Friday 66, he trailed top players by just one stroke. As the tournament progressed, the pressure mounted. At the end of regulation, Zoeller found himself neck-and-neck with fierce rival Greg Norman. In what became one of golf's most dramatic closing moments, Zoeller, seeing Norman complete what he believed to be a winning birdie putt on the 18th, raised a white towel in mock surrender in a gesture of sportsmanship and resignation. He assumed it was over. But fate had other plans. The putt was only for par. Zoeller, with grim determination, steadied himself. He held his nerve to force a playoff. The next day, he unleashed one of the most dominant playoff rounds in U.S. Open history, a 3-under par 67. Norman, demoralized, fell behind. When Zoeller completed that final hole 8 strokes ahead, the fairways of Winged Foot echoed not just with cheers, but with disbelief. It was a triumph of heart, grit, and unflinching nerve. "I'm not a great player," he later said, "but I'm a damn good one." In 1985, his sportsmanship and impact on the game were recognized when the United States Golf Association awarded him the prestigious Bob Jones Award, the highest honor they give for distinguished sportsmanship. For a time, the narrative was perfect. A rough-and-tumble kid from Indiana, rising to golf's highest peaks, winning majors, earning plaudits, carrying himself with flair. But life, as ever, demanded complexity and truth. In 1997, during the final round of the Masters, long after his victories had made him a household name, Zoeller made a comment that would change everything. After the dazzling performance of a young rising star, Tiger Woods, as reporters asked Zoeller for his reaction, he quipped, in crude, racially insensitive language, about what Woods might have chosen to serve at the champions' dinner. "Tell him not to serve fried chicken next year or collard greens, or whatever the hell they serve." The remark landed instantly with all the force of a grenade. For many, the joke was more than tone-deaf. It was deeply offensive. For supporters, admiration faltered. Endorsements vanished. The laughter that once followed him turned to silence and anger. The Guardian. Zoeller publicly apologized, later admitting to tears, regret, and grief over how his words had affected others. He called it the worst thing I've gone through in my entire life. Still, he acknowledged, with painful clarity, that some damage cannot be undone. "I've cried many times. I've apologized countless times for words said in jest that just aren't a reflection of who I am." Yet, he also understood that this incident will never, ever go away. And in that moment, after decades of triumphs, his legacy became complicated. Brilliant play, charismatic presence, but also a stain that would follow him for decades. The Guardian. Even as controversy overshadowed parts of his career, Zoeller kept returning to the game he loved. After turning 50, he joined the senior circuit, the PGA Tour Champions, where he carved out a second act. He won the 2002 Senior PGA Championship in his rookie year on the Senior Tour, and again in 2004 at the season-opening MasterCard Championship. Rustic cheers, old friends, familiar fairways. In those years, you could almost sense him seeking redemption, not only as a golfer, but as a man who once walked into darkness and was trying to find his way back. Off the course, life punished him as well. His wife, Diane Thornton Zoeller, passed away in 2021, leaving him widowed and his children scattered. Memories of laughter and love lingered, but grief became part of his twilight years. The roar of crowds faded, golf courses became silent. Yet those who knew him, fellow players, club members, juniors he mentored, spoke of a man who remained generous, who loved the outdoors, who still believed in the sport even when the world had turned its eyes away. Then, on November 27, 2025, the world of golf lost him. Fuzzy Zoeller died at the age of 74. The cause of death was not immediately released. Statements poured in, from the governing bodies, from former rivals, from fans, all speaking of a true original whose talent and charisma left an indelible mark on the game. Now we look back at his life in total, a tapestry woven with brilliance and regret, with victories and mistakes, with cheers and silence. Fuzzy Zoeller's story is more than a biography of a golfer. It's a story of human imperfection, of how a gifted young man became a champion, how success brought adoration, and how one careless moment can cast a long shadow. He was the last man to ever win the Masters on his first attempt. He played with speed, humor, swagger. He whistled between shots. He hoisted a putter to the sky in triumph. He raised a towel in mock surrender, and moments later, forced victory. He won major championships. He earned the respect of fans and peers. But he also made a remark that hurt many, that echoed long after the applause died. He apologized. He wept. He lived with the consequences. In remembering Fuzzy Zoeller, we remember the heights of human achievement and the fragility of human morality. We remember what it means to be flawed, to stumble, to fight for redemption. And we remember the fairways, quiet now, where a man once whistled, swinging clubs at sunrise, chasing a dream, playing for glory, laughter, and soul. From the beginning, Robert Louis Deere Jr.'s life seemed shaped by isolation, instability, and a long pattern of erratic behavior that repeatedly placed him on the fringes of society. Born in 1958 in South Carolina, he drifted through different states, moving between rural properties and rundown residences, leaving behind a trail of troubling relationships and police encounters. Those who crossed paths with him often described a man who lived in his own world, fueled by paranoia, distrust, and increasingly extreme belief. For years he expressed anger toward the government, hostility toward women, and deep involvement in fringe conspiracy theories, all of which set the stage for the violent act that would make his name widely known across the United States. His personal life was marked by failed marriages, accusations of abuse, and a tendency to withdraw from normal social structures. Deere often isolated himself in remote homes, surrounding his life with survivalist preparations, religious extremism, and anti-government rhetoric. Neighbors reported that he frequently made disturbing comments, ranted about perceived enemies, and displayed unpredictable emotional swings. Despite multiple red flags, none of these incidents escalated to the level that brought law enforcement attention strong enough to prevent what would come next. Over the years, his fixation on political and religious issues hardened, combining with an already volatile personality and producing a dangerous worldview that framed violence as justified action. Everything culminated on November 27, 2015, when Robert Deere carried out a deadly attack at a Planned Parenthood clinic in Colorado Springs. Armed with multiple weapons, he opened fire outside and then barricaded himself inside the building, triggering a tense hours-long standoff with police. 3 people were killed, including a police officer, and several others were injured. Throughout the confrontation, Deere repeatedly shouted political and religious slogans, expressing motivations tied to extremist ideology. His surrender did not end the shock and fear that the attack spread through the community, but it did bring him into a legal process that would stretch on for years due to questions surrounding his mental state. After his arrest, Deere underwent repeated psychiatric evaluations. Courts found him incompetent to stand trial multiple times, citing delusional thinking and inability to participate in his own defense. As a result, He was confined to a Colorado State mental health facility rather than facing immediate prosecution. Over time, he continued to insist on extreme beliefs, often disrupting proceedings with erratic statements about conspiracies, surveillance, and divine guidance. The legal system struggled to balance the need for justice with the reality of his profound psychological instability. Federal charges were eventually added, but the overall case remained stalled because of his persistent incompetency evaluations. Robert Deere's story represents a collision between untreated mental illness, radicalization, and access to violence, a combination that has echoed in other tragic events throughout recent American history. His life before the attack shows how warning signs can accumulate without intervention strong enough to disrupt a dangerous trajectory, while his years of confinement after the attack highlight the complex boundaries between criminal intent and mental incapacity. Though still alive, his life is now defined entirely by institutional walls, clinical supervision, and a long legal shadow that may never fully resolve. His actions left lasting scars on victims, families, and the Colorado Springs community, and his name remains tied not to any legacy of achievement but to a moment of devastating violence that reshaped thousands of lives in a single day. No matter how many chapters a life contains, every story comes to a close. But endings are never the final word. What remains are the memories, the influence, and the lessons carried forward by those who continue to speak their name, revisit their work, or feel inspired by the trails they blazed. As we reach the end of this journey, let us remember not just how they lived, but what their life meant, the emotions they stirred, the ideas they shaped, and the legacy that continues long after they are gone.